To those living through it, the world seemed to be sleepwalking toward an abyss. The scars of the First World War were still raw. They weren't just monuments in town squares. They were millions of veterans disabled in the streets, and a generation of orphans now reaching adulthood. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, was meant to be the peace to end all wars. But for Germany, it was a diktat, a dictated peace, a humiliation that drained its economy and wounded its national pride. When the Great Depression of 1929 struck the planet, the fragile house of cards that was the Weimar Republic collapsed. In breadlines and shuttered factories, a voice began to echo with promises of order, work, and above all, revenge. Adolf Hitler did not seize power through a sudden coup. He climbed the ladder of chaos. And while the world looked inward, trying to survive economic ruin, the gears of a new war machine began to turn in Berlin. The dance of the dictator. Throughout the 1930s, European diplomacy became a game of wait and see. Hitler tested the world's resolve. He remilitarized the Rhineland in 1936. Had France sent a single battalion, he likely would have retreated. But France was paralyzed. He annexed Austria in 1938. The world protested, but did not act. Then came the infamous moment, the Munich Conference. Picture the scene. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain returning from Germany, waving a piece of paper in the wind and declaring, "I believe it is peace for our time." He had handed the Sudetenland over to Hitler, hoping the dictator's appetite had an end. It was the costliest miscalculation in history. While Chamberlain spoke of peace in the shadows, Germany and Mussolini's Italy were sealing the Pact of Steel. Fascism was no longer just an ideology. It was a military bloc ready to redraw the map of the world in blood. August 1939. The world wakes up to news that seemed impossible. The two greatest ideological enemies on earth, Hitler's Nazism and Stalin's communism, had signed a non-aggression pact, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Why? Hitler did not want a two-front war just yet. Stalin needed time to rebuild his army after his own internal purges. But there was a secret. In the fine print of the pact, a clause divided Poland like a piece of meat at a butcher shop. On the Polish border, on the night of August 31st, German agents staged an attack on a radio station in Gliwice. They used concentration camp prisoners, dressed them in Polish uniforms, and executed them on site to create proof of Polish aggression. The lie was set. The machine was fueled. At 04:45 a.m. on September 1st, the German battleship Schleswig-Holstein opened fire on the Polish garrison at Westerplatte. It wasn't just an invasion. It was the birth of Blitzkrieg, lightning war, panzer tanks slicing through the plains, followed by Stuka dive bombers whose sirens, nicknamed the Jericho trumpets, terrified those on the ground. September 3rd, 1939. The British ultimatum expires at 11 a.m. Neville Chamberlain takes to the airwaves. His voice is no longer one of triumph, but of personal defeat. "This nation is now at war with Germany," he announces. Hours later, France follows suit. The Second World War had officially begun, but for Poland, help was too far away. While the Poles fought desperately with their infantry and horsemen against modern steel, the final blow came from where they least expected. On September 17th, Stalin's Red Army crossed the eastern border. Poland was being crushed between two giants. Warsaw resisted under heavy bombardment, without electricity or water, until the last bullet. The country that had regained its independence only 20 years earlier was vanishing from the map once again. With the fall of Poland, a strange silence fell over Europe. Historians call this period the Phony War. The French and British armies sat behind their fortifications, waiting. Hitler was silent, planning his next move toward the west. But the world would never be the same. In those first 30 days of September 1939, humanity crossed a line from which there would be no return for 6 long years. The final cost would be over 60 million lives. The eclipse of Europe had begun. The lights were going out across the continent, and no one living through that moment knew when, or if, they would ever shine again.